He shot her. She turned to dust. She's reforming. Oh. What is that? She's coming back. She's officially a Terminator. What's up, everybody? I'm here to talk Emergence, episode 12. The name of the episode is Kill Shot. This was a very, very good episode. In fact, I had to watch it a couple times because there was a lot of information to process. So we're going to break it down for you today, and we'll go through this play by play. Maybe we can shed a little bit of light onto all of the information that they threw at us during this episode. So the episode starts off with Helen and Emily. Looks like they're having a nice dinner, but they're actually not having a very nice dinner because at the end of the last episode, if you guys can remember, Helen pretty much kidnapped Emily and is holding her hostage because Helen wants Emily to give her the same abilities that Piper has. Helen tells Emily she considers both of them mothers of the evolution. Probably not the best idea to put a knife down in front of Emily, considering she tends to kill people, but she actually doesn't kill as many people as Helen does. I mean, she killed her dad, but Helen just kills everyone and everything that doesn't suit her agenda. Helen not only wants Emily to replicate Piper's abilities, she wants her to expand on them, which means she wants to have even more powers and more abilities that Piper has. Oh, that knife. I told you it was a bad idea. So Emily tries to slash Helen's throat, and that doesn't work. The throat just heals itself automatically. So it's clear Helen has more abilities than a lot of these other AIs. I think a lot of the other AIs are more human-like in that they're susceptible to injury. Not as susceptible because I think they can heal themselves. As we've seen with Benny, he survived getting a gunshot, but he definitely was wounded. He definitely didn't have a healing ability like that. Yeah, so she just tried to slit Helen's throat, and well, this is awkward now because she's absolutely fine. Helen insists that Emily has found the key and she wants her to use it to unlock everything for Helen. But considering that Emily just tried to slit her throat, she will not be working on Helen's code. She will actually be working on Justin's code. Oh, and if Emily isn't able to produce the results that Helen would like, she'll basically cut her throat. She's also promised her money. She's willing to compensate her very, very well. Yeah, so Emily doesn't really have a choice. Back at the Evans house, we have Joe trying to get a hold of Agent Brooks, who we saw was shot several times at the end of the last episode. And Piper still has the device on her wrist that prevents her from using her powers. Piper says the device doesn't actually hurt her, but it makes her feel fuzzy. But there is somebody that knows how to get this device off of Piper, and that is Benny. However, Benny is locked up in jail, and Joe has no intention at this point on letting him out. Piper believes that Benny is different now and wants Joe to let him out of jail so that he can help them. But obviously, Joe is having a hard time believing he can be trusted. Joe then calls the FBI trying to get a hold of Brooks again. When she asks to be patched through to Brooks, some other agent answers the phone asking her to identify herself. So Joe calls Chris to try and see if he can figure out where Brooks is. Chris has learned that Emily has never made it back to the detention center, and obviously Brooks is missing. Meanwhile, someone's been asking for Joe, and it's Benny. He's still locked up there at the station. So at this point, I'm hoping, and Joe is hoping, that Benny will be able to give them some insight as to what is going on exactly. Well, we don't get as much information from him as we were hoping, but we do learn that there could be thousands of AIs out there. So basically, Benny's purpose was to live a life and collect data, and this data would all go into an upload. So at an appointed time, sometime soon, the data that he collects, and I guess other AIs have been collecting, gets uploaded. Who gets the upload? His maker. Who's his maker? We don't know. Benny doesn't know who the maker is. Nobody knows who the maker is because he was never programmed to know who the maker was. But he does know that Helen wants Piper's abilities. He's not quite sure why or what purpose or event she plans to use them for. Again, Joe is frustrated with this because Benny doesn't have many more answers than they already had. But he does have some information, though, about this device. From what we learn later in the episode when we see the blob again, and we knew the blob is what we saw go on the boat, Benny mentions a device that is needed to facilitate the upload. We learn that they stole this device blob thing from a defense contractor, which raises more questions, honestly, because what defense contractor is carrying around this gelatinous blob device that is going to facilitate an upload? And here comes the bad news. Once the upload happens, all the AIs are completely wiped out. The bodies remain, but they will all pretty much die, and their data will be erased. So that's bad for Benny, but that would also include Piper. Benny wants Joe to stop it, but he's really not giving her any information as to how she can stop it, and Joe's not happy about this either. He doesn't even know where Helen is at this point. Joe is clearly very annoyed with Benny because he betrayed her. Benny tries to say he never had a choice. He was only programmed to do a certain thing, and then, oh, I'm a robot. I'm only programmed to do certain things. He says, I'm not that person anymore. And Joe says, you're not a person at all. But Benny keeps insisting that now he's like Piper. He's changed. And as you can see here, Joe's not buying it. Chris comes in and informs Joe that the FBI is raiding Brooks's apartment. Apparently, the place is crawling with agents and they are confiscating everything. Joe then gets a message from an unknown caller on her phone, and we hear a woman's voice say Bay Harbor Hospital, room 220. And I guess it was Abby that called her. When Joe gets to the hospital, Abby informs her that he showed up as a John Doe last night. Thankfully, our John Doe is Agent Brooks, who is injured, but I think will be okay. Unfortunately, the FBI is not too far behind Joe here. So then Abby goes to stall them, but then we get this cutaway. I believe this cutaway is a flashback to what happened when Brooks got shot. We have Emily getting out of the car. Is that Brooks right there? Yeah, it looks like we see Brooks falling down on the ground. Look who's there. It's Helen. It's actually Helen. That was really fast. If you blink, you would miss this. Okay, and then it cuts back to Brooks. Yay, and Brooks is okay. Joe tells Brooks they need to get the hell out of there because the FBI is not too far behind them. Thanks to Walter here, they are able to evade FBI agents for the moment. So Joe takes Brooks back to the station. Brooks is concerned about the FBI now having access to not only his computer, but pretty much all the intel that he was collecting on Piper and Emily and the entire investigation. And he's concerned this might blow back on Joe in a negative way. Brooks is aware that he was shot several times. However, he doesn't think it's possible for the person that he thinks stopped them. Helen, believe it or not, Helen stopped them, but I thought they were Helen's guys, so this makes absolutely no sense. And according to Benny, it's not possible. It doesn't make sense to us either because we saw Helen over in the woods with Emily when Brooks was shot. Benny suspects the same thing we all suspected, which ended up being true. Helen wants Emily to write the code for her so that she can have the same abilities as Piper. And he cannot emphasize enough how bad it will be if she has the same abilities or even more capabilities than Piper has. Benny insists that they need to let him out because he's the only one that can stop Helen. Benny wants to earn Joe's trust back, but he does know how to get Piper's bracelet off, so that's helpful. Then we have a cutaway exterior shot of this island right here. We're going to learn more about that in a little bit. This is where Helen is keeping Emily to work on the code. The code will ultimately be for Helen, but for now she's using Justin. So Emily is rambling and ranting off to Justin, kind of the way she does, because as we've seen in the past, she'll pretty much go off and complain about everything. Apparently, Piper's abilities were an accident, a coding error, and she has absolutely no idea how to replicate that. And Justin is like totally understanding of Emily's frustration. Like, he is the most compassionate, sensitive AI that could possibly be. Back at the police station, Joe and Brooks have to hide because the FBI are there and they are looking for Brooks. But Brooks is tired of running. He wants to turn himself in. He doesn't want to be on the run forever. The biggest issue here is that he had Emily in his custody and he lost her. Joe doesn't want Brooks to go. Something is about to happen. Oh, and it does. Okay, Joe and Brooks sitting in the tree. Well then, Joe isn't quite sure how to react. Like, her arms are just... Okay, that's cute. It's cute. There you go. That's much better. Let me know down in the comments whether you support this ship or you are against it. And then afterwards, Joe tells him she thinks he's being a bit dramatic. Interesting response to a kiss. Probably not what he was expecting. She tells him not to disappear again, and since I believe they are building a romantic arc here, I don't think he will be. But he does go and turn himself into the FBI. Turns out Benny's instructions on how to get this device deactivated from Piper's arm is a success. It doesn't take long for Piper to figure out that Benny was the one who instructed Joe on how to deactivate the device. Once again, Piper insists that Benny is changed. And once again, Joe insists that he is being manipulative and doing what he's programmed to do. Back at the FBI, they are questioning Agent Brooks about Joe. Not even a few seconds in, we're introduced to this other character. Who the heck is this guy? So this guy is going to take over things from here. According to this, he is Michael Donovan and he works for the Department of Justice. So it looks like the FBI is going to have to take a hike on this. And they look thrilled about it. I pretty much am having the same reaction Brooks is. When did the Department of Justice get involved in all of this and what role are they playing? Because we didn't think the government knew anything about this. So Agent Brooks can go home. Not only that, but they're giving him a new badge, a new phone, and a new car. So this guy's going to make the entire thing go away like it never happened. Obviously, Brooks is having some reservations about this, but this guy maintains that he is a friend. This whole situation is questionable. Who sent him, and why does he want all of this to disappear from the FBI? There's a whole other level happening that we didn't even know about. This whole thing is sketchy, and obviously Brooks is feeling a bit iffy about it, so he throws away the phone and the badge, and I believe the car keys too. Instead, he decides to flag down a cab. After he gets in the cab pulls away. It appears this car right here is following right behind him. And he goes to Joe's house. Everyone seems to go to Joe's house. Brooks is aware that he's being followed by somebody. He's hesitant to come inside because he doesn't want to put Joe in danger. But it's a little bit too late for that now because, well, if he's being followed, he's already led them to her house. Meanwhile, Ed is wondering, who is this dude? Brooks tells Joe the FBI has been keeping tabs on all of her activities. They even know about the car that they dropped in the bottom of the ocean, the one with the floating debris, if you guys remember that. And then we learn that Brooks came there because he wanted to see Joe. Naturally, Brooks has some questions about this car that Joe dumped in the ocean. When he questions her about it, well, he gets cut off because she kisses him this time. Then after she kisses him, she realizes that maybe they should probably let whoever's following them continue to follow them so they can figure out who's following them. And we have an exterior shot of the city. So they let whoever's following him follow him back to the city. So whoever's following him isn't being very inconspicuous because they're right there and they stopped right after. They're pretty much parked right behind him. And you see him get out and walk away. And we see this woman get out and walk away. Then Brooks walks into a parking garage. And we see a figure appear behind him right over here. Oh, and ambushed by Joe. It's Helen, right? This woman looks like Helen, but she doesn't sound like Helen. Her name is Loretta. She created Helen. So we learned that Loretta is the one who's been tailing Agent Brooks. We learned from Loretta that 18 years ago, the DOJ intercepted a transmission of unknown origin. They suspect it was either from Russia or China. They assumed it was instructions on how to build a weapon, but obviously it wasn't that. It was instructions on how to build an AI. Basically, they built an AI and they thought it was successful, and then the AI went rogue and turned on them and torched their lab and killed her entire team. The AI also destroyed the source code. The reason why it did this is because they realized that the AI was building its own AI. So this was the first AI, and it's no surprise here, the first AI was Helen. That kind of makes sense considering she has more abilities than these other AIs. Also, this all makes sense now because it was actually not Helen that rescued Brooks when he got shot. It was Loretta, who he would have thought was Helen because she replicated herself as an AI. I'm covering all of this pretty extensively because it's a lot to process. Loretta claims she has a device that can deactivate and destroy Helen, but they haven't been able to track her. And now Loretta wants to do an exchange, a trade-off, the exabyte disk for the weapon that can destroy Helen. Joe isn't too crazy about this trade-off because she doesn't want to give Loretta or the DOJ or anyone else Piper's code because it could somehow probably and possibly potentially hurt Piper. Loretta insists that she doesn't want Piper, she just wants her source code, so I guess they can rebuild whatever they were building. Yeah, so that's going to be a no-go for Joe because that could potentially endanger Piper. We're taken to a scene back at the facility. Emily is trying to get Justin to move a paperclip with his mind. While Justin seems to have some sweet words of encouragement, it doesn't seem to be helping. So he tries once again to get the objects to move. They don't move. He gets frustrated. He hits the table. And then we hear this noise. It's the blob. Well, they have no idea what it is. And then Emily slaps Justin. Why does she slap him? I'm confused. She slaps him twice. What the hell? And then the blob starts to levitate. That is not normal. That is not an AI. Okay. And then she punches him in the gut hard. What the heck? And then suddenly Chris gets an alert from a signal picked up where his phone is. And we know that he put his phone with the blob. As you can see here, this appears to be the same island that we saw the exterior shot of earlier. And then they hear this noise in the police station. And Benny is levitating too. Yeah, this isn't something that we normally see. Back at the house, Piper is also levitating. I'm guessing if there are 1,000 AIs out there, there are 1,000 AIs out there levitating because the blob is levitating, which means the secret is going to be out. Because if there's 1,000 AIs out there and people think they're human and they're out there working these regular jobs, living with these regular families, and all of a sudden they're levitating, you'd think the secret would get out pretty quickly that something is up because that's not something people usually do. They put Piper down on the couch. She wakes up and says it's starting. What's starting? The upload is starting. I don't know how it's starting or what triggered the blob to just rise up, if it had something to do with Justin and his abilities, or whatever Emily was programming with the code. We're not quite sure what prompted it to start, but it is starting, which means potentially all of the AIs are going to be deactivated. Back at the station, it appears Benny has also stopped levitating. He says the upload started, but it was interrupted by something. So I'm curious to know what interrupted the upload. Was it Emily punching Justin, like, in the stomach? Did that make it stop? Joe asks Benny if Helen is on Plum Island. Benny doesn't know. Benny insists that if that's where Helen is, that they all need to go right now and they need to take him with them. Unfortunately, Joe is still not at the point where she feels she can trust Benny. Since they now know where Helen probably is, Joe decides to meet up with Loretta and make the exchange. This way she will have access to the weapon that she needs to kill Helen. So this is the device that apparently has the ability to kill Helen, and according to Loretta, this will kill Helen instantly. We're taken back to a scene at the facility. It appears that Emily and Justin are trying to make a getaway. Justin tells Emily very, very sweetly that his whole life has been about following programming, but now it's about following her. And then what happens after is very heartbreaking because he really liked Emily. Yeah, so Emily threw Justin under the bus. If Helen has Justin, there's no reason for her to come after Emily. She has no use for her anymore because all the data is now in Justin. We learned that was just a simulation. Well, it's the end of Justin, sadly. Helen extracts his bean chip, as I like to call them bean chips, and now she has access to all of his abilities and all of the upgrades that Emily made. Hashtag justice for Justin. Back at the police station, Chris opens up an envelope, and in it, it appears to be Piper's exabyte disk. Benny confirms to Chris that this is Piper's code. So Chris is confused because he's aware that Joe was supposed to make the exchange. Well, clearly she didn't give Loretta the disk. The real disc is at the police station. Back at the house, Piper is with Alex. She's feeling better, but she wants to know where Joe is. Once again, Piper insists that they need Benny. Piper tells Alex if they do not help Joe, she will not come back home. But eventually, Piper convinces Alex to take her to go get Benny. Brooks and Joe arrive at the facility on the island. We see Helen opening up this object from a metal briefcase. I'm just gonna let it play for a second because it's kind of hard to explain what it does. What are those? What are those? I don't know what that is. It looks like mud. And then Brooks is there. That's what happens. Yeah. So Helen is like mega AI now. She has more powers than Piper, because I don't know what that was. And look, the device is over here now. And as you can see here, Joe has dropped the needle that was given to her by Loretta that could potentially kill Helen. Thankfully, she grabs it, and it looks like Helen is walking towards Joe and is probably going to try and kill her. Brooks fires off 2 shots at Helen, which seemingly does nothing to her, so Joe fires off her gun. And this is what happens. She turns into dust. She just blew up into dust like poof, and then reformed. It's probably best to make a run for it. That's a very good idea. So they run away and they try to hide. They're hiding and, well, the lights go out and someone's coming for them. And she's probably going to keep coming after them because Joe grabbed that thing that we saw, whatever that was, that little mud thing. I don't know what to call it. So the only question now is how the hell are they going to get out of here? And then we just hear some pounding noises. It kind of sounds like the T-Rex is loose. And it fades to black, and we left this episode on a cliffhanger. And the next episode is the finale. I have so many questions. How much does the DOJ know about everything? Obviously, they know everything. Where did they intercept all of this intel from? The data that they received that gave them the tools to build these AIs, it came from someplace. They think China or Russia, but for all we know, it could come from outer space. It could have been aliens. It's very possible that this is alien technology. I'm not saying it is, but it is very possible. This is absolutely not normal. Now Helen has more abilities than Piper because we have never seen Piper do that. Piper's never exploded and then reformed back to life. Or if she has, we haven't seen it. We're not quite sure what Emily did with the code. We're still not sure what happened with the blob, why the upload was interrupted, what triggered it. The biggest question is, what is Helen's endgame here? Does she want to destroy all humans and take over the world? The reason why she went rogue from the DOJ is because she was building her own army of AIs, which I believe took place under the organization of Splinter. It seems like as the season has progressed, Each episode reveals more information of somebody higher up that's pulling the strings. Like, first we thought it was Kindred, and then we thought it was Wilkes, and then we met Helen. We thought it was Augur, and then we learned about Splinter, and now we're learning who created Helen. So the government has actually been involved in this all along. If Helen wants to deactivate every other AI, her entire army of AIs, what does she then plan to do? Because if she is trying to complete the upload, then she will no longer have an army of AIs out there. Maybe she doesn't want to have an army of AIs out there. She wants to be the head AI. Maybe she's working for the aliens. Maybe she's working for Russia or China. Who knows? I have a lot of questions to answer, and I hope they get to some of them next week in the finale. I really want this show to be renewed for another season, and they still haven't announced it yet. So if you're on Twitter, make sure you hit that hashtag #RenewEmergence. Follow me on Twitter at LauriceF. Leave a comment below and let me know your theories, what you thought of this episode, and if I missed anything, please let me know as well. Thanks again for watching, guys. I will see you after next week's finale.